What's up, Mike Nowstalgia. Dave here with a review of 731, the Chinese historical drama film about the Japanese occupation of China at the beginning of World War II. This film, which has been titled Evil Unbound for its Western release, is, the second really significant film out of China regarding the Japanese occupation of China during that time. Of course, less than 2 months ago, we had Dead to Rights come out, which China has since submitted as its best international feature film choice for the Oscars this year. That was a film I liked a lot for several reasons. Really happy with that. One of my favorite films of the year. And that film was specifically about the Nanking Massacre during the heavy combat stage of the Second Sino-Japanese War. This case, though, 731, this is more about the occupation of Manchuria, which of course is kind of the beginning stages of that conflict. And more specifically, 731 is about the titular 731 unit in Imperial Japan's army, which was notorious for its very, evil and inhumane biological and chemical experimentations on its prisoners. Much like Dead to Rights, unsurprisingly, this is very heavy subject matter. This is very heavy material and still very serious, right? This is, one of those things that's pointed to as a source of conflict between China and Japan, and, the portrayal of historical Japan as a big bad, as a villain of a Chinese film. It seems to be a bit more common at the moment. This film came out back on September 18th in China, and I believe it set the record for the most single screenings of a film in one day. And September 18th is actually significant because that is the 94th anniversary of the actual beginning of that invasion back in 1931. And kind of surprisingly, 731, it was released in the United States that same weekend. You really don't see like a day and date release for a Chinese film elsewhere in the world. I mean, I've reviewed several Chinese films at this point, and you have to wait at least a few weeks usually when the release is almost exclusively just in mainland China to start. So this is definitely something new. I'm not sure if we can necessarily expect that to continue for future Chinese releases. Of course, only the biggest of those films even make their way over here. That being said, it is significant, I guess. We'll keep our eye on that. And the film did perform well with its opening weekend, a 4-day opening of 172 million. That being said, the reception has been poor, and it's not just a poor reception from Western film critics. It's also not getting good remarks on, Weibo and Douban and IMDb, right? Like, it seems to be there's a bit of a rejection from Chinese audiences, and I'd have to concur with that sentiment. Chinese historical drama film 731 fails to match the gravity of the subject matter it's trying to portray. Inhumane experiments by the Japanese army on Chinese prisoners during World War II is certainly dark and dramatic enough to portray in a gripping war film, but 731 is not that film. This film is stylish to a fault, has garish CGI, caricatures up and down the aisle, both on the Chinese side and the evil, captor side of things. It just comes across as really unsophisticated and incredibly over the top. And it's a bit of a shame because you compare that to the great success earlier this year with Dead to Rights, portraying a different but similar aspect of Japan's subjugation of China during that time in World War II. These films are not even in the same stratosphere in terms of quality. And, it's not the most helpful thing to just immediately call back to a different film, a film that you like more. But that's what I often found myself doing with Dead to Rights. I think of, the head of this Unit 731 in real life is General Ishii, and he's a character, the Japanese general. He's a character in this film, but there's no depth to him. He's not really a character, and all these other Japanese military figures that we encounter throughout the film, they're super over the top and outlandish, and it's one thing to portray them rightfully as villains, but the way this film's going about it, it just kind of loses you, And I think that's the key thing, where it's like, this is a serious and worthy topic and historical event to dramatize. And this is just not that dramatic. Like, it just comes across as low quality to me. I mean, I think of with Dead to Rights, you had, I think, really lavish and impressive production design, and the sets that we did revisit were really detailed and intricate, and the movie looked really good. Versus with 731, it has like almost like a B movie sheen to it, and I think the sets are a bit sparser and more sterile in appearance. And then when we exit outside of those sets within the prison facility, science facility, as it were, when we're outside, it looks even worse because the CGI is that much more glaring. In terms of the characters on the Chinese side of things, I mean the central performance is Jiang as Wang Yongshan, who is this like local vendor who, like everyone else captured there, which is kind of swept up and lied to about these experiments. The pretext of them, the Japanese trying to make them no longer sick, and then they'll release them when that is no longer the case. Obviously, a lie for these wide-ranging experiments with bacteria, with insects, with extreme cold, hyperbaric chambers, being immolated, right? It's Nazi-esque, literally. And while the film doesn't shy away from showing you that grievousness, we don't really have much of an attachment to these characters. There's some other people we encounter, other prisoners, a pregnant woman, a young boy, some people that grow more wise to the situation quicker than others. There's just really no depth to any of those characters. And there's no payoff to what happens, and you start to lead into a lot of like Hollywood cliches. We start to get some action slow motion towards the end there, and yeah, again, I just didn't think it really held up its end of the bargain in terms of what it was trying to deal with. It's just not impressive of a script, not impressive of staging. Stylistic to a fault for me. Also, like, you have these regular flashbacks, and not flashbacks to like a different event, something new to the audience. No, literally a flashback to a previous scene from an hour ago, and you see that scene again with a black and white hue over it, just to remind you as the viewer what you had previously seen, just to make sure, beat you over the head with the point the movie's trying to make, that connection. I could go on, but disappointed for sure. I like to seek out the Chinese blockbuster films that do make their way over here. I'm lucky enough to live in an area where when those films do come over, they will be shown by me, so it's not that big of an effort for me. I like making that effort just to compare and contrast, right? The state of Chinese blockbuster film. And again, when you get something like Dead to Rights, when you get something like a few years ago, like Full River Red, really impressive, wowing movies. It's also important to be able to note when that's not the case, and that's where I'm at with 731. Let me know though, what did you think of this movie? If you liked it more, please tell me why. And for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.